All right. Okay, we are now running. Excellent. All right, so, hey, welcome to my YouTube Live, and here's my masterclass on adaptive leadership. Um, this is something that I've been really working on for and thinking about for the past probably year now, almost two. Um, we've been focused a lot on servant leadership or transformational leadership. And during my research, I found adaptive leadership really fits kind of what we want to do with self managed teams or agile organizations because there's a lot where we need to involve ourselves and anyone, not just our VPs, not just our managers. So there's more to it. So here I'm going to give a masterclass quick on kind of how you can be an adaptive leader, how you can make those changes and kind of make that step up. So here, this is what we're going to tackle, right? I gave you a quick intro. We'll talk about a little bit more. I'm going to talk about like why it really matters and what is involved in being that adaptive leader, right? And then we're going to talk about some tools, get some practicing in, kind of help you out. And I'm looking at right now, it looks like the chat is not working, or at least through my tool, I can't see the chat. So there won't be much of a Q&A session. What you can do is put in the comments. I'll answer your question in the comments and we'll go from there. If you'd like to reach out to me personally afterwards, you'll have my email in the end. There'll be a web page where you can go to get more information and we'll just go from there. All right, let's see how it works out. So to say the change is the new normal, it's kind of silly, right? Um, in 2020, we saw like probably the biggest change this planet has seen in almost a century. But from a business perspective, there's always change. Look at what has happened since between 1980 and now, in the past 45 years. So much has changed. Cell phones are now basically portable computers. So, computers that we had way back then, there's nothing compared to what everyone has in their pocket. So, markets have changed, teams have changed. We're now no longer just everyone in an office setting. We're remote, we're different areas, we're co located. Customer needs have changed as well. So we need to keep focused and we need to keep up with these changes going along. And the old way of doing things, traditional way of management, traditional way of leading, you know what? It's not going to work. We've it worked well in kind of like the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s when things were really straightforward. The boss would know what to do and help and push, give the direction, and the team would work from there. Now, that type of management is just slow. It's not going to keep up. So, we're going to be in an environment, if we keep this old traditional way of doing things are going to keep changing and changing and changing, and we're always going to be just chasing. We don't want to be chasing anymore. We want to lead. We want to kind of get ahead of it. We want to be involved in the change. We want to be involved in the evolution of how things are going to work. And no longer are kind of leaders sitting in their office, door closed, come in at 8 o'clock, leave at 6 or 4 or whenever, talk to a few people here and there, and just kind of bark out orders. That's not the way things work anymore. It's just too slow and it creates frustration for everyone. So, wouldn't it be nice if we had an environment where everyone kind of got along and not only just got along, but understood the work they needed to do and push forward? So then it's no longer just frustrating coming into work. For me, as I was an executive for a company a while ago, and even before then, when I was a manager and director, senior manager, I always made sure that the teams I worked with they wanted to come into work. And it was always the question I gave the team, whereas I would say, all right, are you crawling out of bed or are you jumping out of bed to work? And if they would say they're crawling, it's like, okay, what would we need to do in this environment? What would we need to do in this workplace to make you want to jump and be excited to come out to work? And we worked through that and we did some fabulous changes when I just talked with the team and I gave them the trust that they can do what they need to do as long as we hit the goals. And that's where we want to get to. Because command and control, it's slow, right? When we have different groups, even within teams, I worked with a team where they would say, oh, the QA team, oh, the development team, oh, the BA team. When in all actuality, they're all one team. But when they create the silos, even within that team, it's just going to slow any sort of creative productivity down to a halt. And then what happens when all that happens is there's a loss of trust. No one trusts anyone. There's maybe just one voice that kind of leads the entire team. No one wants to speak up. People are not engaged. Things aren't working all that well. And again, that's when you get back to, do you crawl out of bed or do you hop out of bed? And usually when you have these traditional ways of doing things, you're crawling out of bed because you don't want to go into that environment. You don't want to walk into the office and roll your eyes saying, oh, here we go again, or anything like that. We want to move forward. We want to build something. When I come into work in the morning, I want to be excited. I want to be, yes, I'm going to do something good today. I'm going to work. We're going to get this going. And I want that energy. You want that energy too. Because it's just going to make the work life easier, fun to be in. It's no point in for like 8, possibly 9, 10 hours a day to be miserable. Yes, you want to be pressured. Yes, you want to work through it. But you want to create an environment where you're like, everyone is just working and getting things done and collaborating. And adaptive leadership helps get you there. So here's a question for you. You can put it in the comments. We could talk about it through the chat. Well, not through the chat because the chat's not working. But what's the toughest change you've led or you faced out at work? Think about that. Think about when you went through a change or you went through a huge project or something was going on. And it was tough. It was a tough go. Things didn't work out all that well. It was tough to deal with. You went into the office and eyes rolled up. It's like, oh God, okay, here we go again. I can do this. I've seen people do that. I've seen people when they get to their desk, they literally say to themselves, I can do this. We're going to get through this. What's the point of that? I don't want to be miserable when I work. I want to create an environment where things are just flowing. And if something happens, if the tough gets coming in, the pressure gets too much, that people will step up and be the leader to help get things through, regardless of title. So that's the key thing. Everyone thinks of as leader is, oh, you're a manager. Oh, you're a team lead. You're a director. You're a AVP. You're a VP. You're an executive. You're C-suite. Adaptive leadership is how we feel and how we work in our environment. So a lot of places, a lot of talk you want to see is like, we want to get away from command and control. Well, being an adaptive leader there is a part of command and control, but you're commanding yourself and you're controlling yourself. You're being comfortable. You want to step into the unknown. You want to be able to step up and speak and say something. You want to trust the team that I'm going to say something and this is how it's going to work. This is how we're going to work together. This is how we're going to solve a potential problem. Instead of having finger pointing or someone comes up with an idea and you know in your heart that there could be something wrong with that, you step up and now say something about it. That's what adaptive leadership is. It's being able to listen and ask questions, bring up new ideas, not being afraid. That's the key thing. Because we want to help guide the teams. And when you look at self managed teams, what's the whole point of a self managed team? The whole point of a self managed team is a team themselves, they can manage themselves. There isn't a leader in the team, everyone is a leader in the team. Maybe by a title, someone is a team lead, but everyone is a leader. Everyone has the opportunity to step forward in a situation and deal with it and work together. No longer are you having these kind of finger pointing or someone taking control of everything going on. Everyone challenges. You step up and challenge. And you have confidence. That's the whole point of all this. When you have servant leadership or transformational leadership, yeah, servant leadership, they help get things done, they help remove impediments. But really, if the team doesn't try to remove the impediment themselves and step up, and you remove it for them, are you really helping the team? Or are you giving them that false sense of security that, oh, if something goes wrong, my manager, my VP, the executive, they're going to take care of it? No, we want to step up. We want to make things right. And leaders want that. As a former executive, I wanted that within my team. I wanted them to work through their problems. And then allowed me to focus on more strategic stuff. How we're going to leave a legacy. How is this department, how is this division going to leave a legacy behind after we're all gone within the organization? So we need to understand there are 4 key things, right? You need to be curious. You need to ask questions. What else could work? And it's not about being the devil's advocate. And I don't like the term devil's advocate because kind of if you really think about it, you're kind of being a jerk to the team just for the sake of being a jerk to the team. You're just kind of saying, oh, this is not going to work, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at it from a curiosity perspective, right, like what else could work? Where could we get to this goal? Is there anything available that we could do to make this easier for ourselves? Humility is a key thing. I've always been a big proponent of being humble and having humility wherever I work. I have no problem saying I don't know. I have zero problem saying, hey, do you want to what? Let me get back to you. Or do you want to what? Let's work through this. We can get to the answer ourselves together. Because now we're learning and now we're building something strong. You want the courage and the flexibility. You want the courage to be able to step up. Even if you're like an introvert, right? As you can tell, I'm very vocal. I love talking. I'm vocal with my hands. I'm a big guy, and people tend to get intimidated just basically by my size. And add to the fact that like I'm very straightforward, a lot of people don't speak up. So for me, I have to understand from a humility perspective and from a humbleness perspective that I can't just take charge. I want everyone to be able to speak. And I want those in the team that maybe they're not the ones that want to step up, but I want to have them have the courage to step up. Have them come forward, right? And you want to be able to be that flexible team. That's the whole point of being a self-managed team, right? So that we're flexible, that we can change when markets change or when the organization changes strategy, or even if like there's a flood in the server room, how are we going to change? How are we going to be effective? So these key traits, this is what you need to have to be an adaptive leader. Anyone, anyone can be an adaptive leader. Anyone can be a leader. It's not about titles. Titles are great. Yes, they're useful from an org chart perspective and how things are going from accountability and where things go, maybe who to go to. But from a team perspective, from a tactical perspective, when you're trying to achieve the goals your goals for your team that lead up to the organization goals, you don't need the VP to be stepping in all the time. They provided you the goals. They provided you some of the direction and guidance. Now it's up to you to step up and get it done. It's about learning. It's about listening. Right? You lead by example. When we do all that, everything just flows. And when you have the trust of your team to do that without fear of stepping on anyone's toes, without fear of someone being upset. It's like, oh my God, that I stepped on the team lead's toes. I stepped over his head or her head when I talked about this in a meeting. It shouldn't matter. Good example is I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt. I teach classes in my spare time. I compete regularly. It does not bother me when a lower belt shows something better than what I did. I have no issue when a lower belt taps me out or beats me. That's me learning. And that's giving them, that's a different version. That's a physical version of being an adaptive leader. Because I want the blue belt, the purple belt, the brown belt, even the white belts. I don't want them scared to come and roll with me and challenge me. I want them to feel that they are in that space where they're going to do the best that they can to try to beat me or at least try to get an advantage over top of me. That's how they learn. Right? Everyone has the influence. It doesn't matter. And when we have the trust and we have the courage to step up and say something and help the team, because that's the real point. You're not coming in and saying something just out of spite. You're not saying something just to be mean. You're saying something, you're stepping up because you want to help the team get better. You want to achieve that goal. Or maybe the goal that you're trying to achieve, maybe it's not the right one. And maybe you want to ask the question saying, is this really the direction we want to go? Is this where the organization is going to go? Is this where we're going to see the value? That's how we're all going to step up. So think about your leader. Think about a leader that you admire. Right? What makes them adaptive? For me, it's been 30 years since I worked with this manager. 30 years, and I still talk about him to this day because I see him as a legend. He helped form me into adapt and change and evolve and go forward. His name's William Elson. He's a great friend. I talk to him every once in a while. Obviously, we dropped off after some years, but still, I have no issue. I can reach out to him and say, hey, how's it going? You gave me the start. You gave me the path of how to achieve this. And adaptive leadership has been around for a while. It's been around for, I believe, since like the early 2000s into the late 90s. I'll double check. I'll post it in the comments as to when it started. But it helped me see this. Yes, I've been looking at this for the past couple of years. But similar to my first involvement in an agile framework. I started using Scrum, and I didn't realize I was using Scrum back in like 2002. I was working with a team, and we were 3 weeks behind. It was a testing project. The delivery date was hard set. We couldn't change it. It was an old waterfall project. So I decided to use like daily scrums and kind of daily check-ins and make goals and what we're going to achieve that week and push through it. And we made up those 3 weeks without 1 hour of overtime. It was amazing. That was my first introduction into Scrum, and I fell in love with it. And I adapted to that. So if you really think about it, I also started my adaptive leadership at that point. I just thought about that right now. That's awesome. I just like, who would have thought? So most of the time, sometimes we do stuff that we don't think we're doing it, but we are. We're learning, we're adapting. So the key out of all of this, right? Here's your 4 A's. You need to be aware as to what's going on, right? Within the team, outside the team, in the market, in the industry, in the discipline, whether you're a developer, QA, a marketing specialist. You need to understand everything that's kind of going on and just kind of keep an eye out, right? Analysis. Understand what's going on. There's data all around us. And you don't want to just react with a cognitive bias or a logical fallacy. You want to be able to have the information in front of you and make the decision. Now, I'm not saying collect data for like days on end. Take the data that you have at that time and make the best decision possible. Because when you have your actions and your adaptive, right? When you're being all that, that's how things will work. Right? You move things along and push and get better. And once you get more data, then you can get more different actions, right? You're adaptive more. You're adapting more. You're doing this. It's just one big circle, right? Back in the mid 90s, late 90s, and early 2000s, for me, the big thing was, as I was a tester at the time, was plan, do, check, act, right? It's a big thing. We still do it. If you look at this, the 4 A's, really, it's kind of plan, do, check, act, and repeat. So we're doing all this stuff. Now let's just have the courage to speak up, right? Have the trust within the team that you can speak up and make the right changes. And a lot of things get in the way. I talked about cognitive bias. I've talked about logical fallacies. And with adaptive leadership, one of the key things, one of the big things people are scared of is they're scared to rock the boat. They're scared to be judged. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. It's happened to me. But we got to work on the trust within the team. Because if we don't speak up, innovation stalls. Like I said, the World Bank looks at productivity growth year over year. And if you look at most recent, the productivity growth now is half of what it used to be in the 1980s, which is odd. We've been talking about Agile for 20 some odd years. And that's part of the reason too, I think our productivity growth has declined. Is when we think of the word agile, we see it as a noun now. When it's not. It's always been an adjective, and we should use it as an adjective. We have agile development, agile management, agile environment, agile support. It's all there, but it's just how we work together and how we use our character, our values, our ethos to be adaptive, to be efficient, to be agile. And again, you may hear it's like, well, this is the way it's always been done, so this is the way we're going to do it. If that was the thinking, think about Ford back when he came up with the Model T. If we did what everyone wanted, we just have a faster horse. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. We need to evolve. Things are changing. Just in the past 5 years, look how much change has happened. So we got to get out of these old habits, right? We got to understand that things are changing. We need to change. That's how we grow. Sharks have to swim forward for them to live. Well, so do we. We have to move forward. We have to move forward to grow, move forward to evolve, adapt to what's going on. When we look at all this and we kind of get our efforts going, right? When we have the trust, when we have the courage to step up, great things can happen to you and to the teams. So, here's some of the things you can use to help, right? Your self-awareness, understanding who you are. Things like 5 behaviors, everything disc, these type of assessments, they give you an understand on how you respond to stress, how you respond to change, and how you work well with others. There's other assessments out there. I just gave 2 examples here, but there's so much out there for you to understand who you are and who is everyone else within the team. How do you respond with them? How do you communicate with them? How do they communicate with you? Team check-ins. And I'm not talking about retrospectives. I'm not talking about daily scrum meetings or daily stand-ups or anything like that. I'm talking about a good, like, well-being check, right? Talk with everyone. How's everything going? What's working, what's not? Right? This is almost like a sub-retrospective. If you really think about it, this is stuff that you can do in the middle of a sprint. You can do it in the middle of a week. You can do at any time. But keep it regular. Check in with everyone. See how things are going. And obviously, you want your feedback loops. You don't have feedback loops, you're not doing anything. I worked with a martial arts club, a jiu-jitsu club. Shocker, I know. But when I worked with them, the way they had their model set up with their students, they needed to have a short feedback loop to ensure that the students were happy, what they were learning was good, it was meeting their expectations, and that they were improving, that they were changing as they went. So they've created monthly surveys. Just to understand, they were doing their own check-in. They weren't doing a check-in with their team, with all their instructors and people working the front desk. They were doing their check-ins and feedback loop with their students. And in doing so, their student loss decreased. Normally, sometimes it's like for every 3 students come in, maybe 1 or 2 students leave. Sometimes even 3 students, or that goes down to the negative. They have never gone down to the negative when they started this journey. When they started using surveys, when they started using agile principles and different tools to get their lesson plan done, to understand their strategy, to understand how to get to their goals. It's a great example of how being adaptive got them to the point where they had their goals for the end of the year. They say, we wanted to hit this. It gave me a list of their goals. They've actually achieved their goals before the end of summer, which is awesome. And it just shows how they didn't get themselves stuck in a traditional way. They pushed themselves and adapted as they went. And the great thing is that they just moved into a new space. They have more students now than they ever thought they would, to the point where they're probably going to have to find a new space within a few years. And that is an awesome thing to have for a martial arts club. So I want you to think about this. What about a time when you had to adapt? What happened? What did you learn? How did you get there? What was the outcome? For me, the time I had to adapt was in February of 2020. I just started my company back in 2019, and I was getting everything set up in that last quarter. And in January of 2020, I was all set. I was raring to go, and things were looking good. And then mid-February 2020, the world shut down. And I was in an industry where face-to-face meetings were common. Face-to-face training, group training was common. And could no longer do that. I had to adapt in how I delivered what my services, what I wanted to do to help others. And I did. Within months, obviously everyone's using Zoom. I was able to start adapting some of the training and coaching, the workshops that I had at the time. I started making the adaptation to do them online. I started working with teams online. Everyone was co-located, everyone's at home, but they still had to work. So I worked with teams through Zoom for the longest time, which was great. It gave me another avenue to provide my services, to share my knowledge and help others get better at what they do and help them evolve. So here's a challenge, right? There's always going to be a challenge. I'm giving you a challenge. I want you to do quick research, and pick one behavior, right? Something that you're willing to work on this week. Ask questions in the meeting. Don't be the devil's advocate, like I said, but ask about other avenues that we could work with. Maybe something will come up, right? Asking for different perspectives, working with everyone. So maybe take a meeting, ask someone for some help, put some stuff down, write stuff down, see how things go. Keep that in mind as you push through. One of the other things you can do to help with this challenge is find someone that will help you. And maybe they will learn from this. Show them this video. After everything's all said and done, say, hey, I took this masterclass and I really liked how Jeremy showed and talked about adaptive leadership. I think this is something that we can do together. I think this is something we can work for. Because we know that when we have peers help us and we work through as a team, there's a lot of follow through. That's why, like, sometimes when people want to lose weight, if they try to do it on their own, they have a hard time. When they have someone helping them and keeping them accountable, they're more ready to accept the change. They're more ready to evolve and get better. For me, again, jiu-jitsu is an individual sport. It is. I'm on the mat. I'm fighting one person in front of me. But it's a team. It's the team that got me to where I went. I fought in world championships. And I busted my hump to get there, to move into those tournaments. But it wasn't me alone that got there. It was my team that helped me. And it felt great because I knew I was prepared when I stepped on that mat. Now, I didn't win any world championships. I haven't won any medals, but I did win some matches here and there. I've gone into local tournaments here and I've succeeded because the team held me accountable to make sure I was prepared to get there. So, try out the behavior. Have an action plan worksheet. If you don't have one, I could provide one. Send me a note, probably through LinkedIn. If you do a search for me, find me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Barrio, and I will send you a template. I have one. Right? After that, share. Let your team know what's going on because that's how everything evolves. It becomes infectious. Trust me. And talk with everyone. Right? Have kind of a follow-up session when you start looking into it. because this is what's going to help things change. So remember, regular reflection, right? Go into your week. What's changing, right? How am I responding to this? How am I responding to this change? Did I respond to the change in a very reactive manner? And I mean by very reactive is like I have an American bulldog, and anyone that comes up to our house, he's very reactive. Everyone in the neighborhood can hear him. But did something happen where you took it, you analyzed it, because you were aware of what's going on, you analyzed it, you came up with an action plan, and you took something, you took initiative, you adapted to that environment, you adapted to the change, and made things better. Create these feedback loops. That's what you're going to need. And it's always about the small wins, right? Yes, it's great when you have a big project and it's out in the world and things are going great. But those don't last, because for me, I've experienced it. I've delivered multi-million-dollar programs in the tens of millions of dollars. And we had a celebration, lasted 2 hours. And then it was like, okay, back to work. But when you celebrate these small wins, we know this. We celebrate the small wins and it adds up. It gets better. Now you're jumping out of bed. You're not crawling out of bed now, you're jumping out of bed. Because you're progressing, you're moving, you're evolving. And you want to encourage everyone to get there. So there's plenty of resources out there. You can do internet searches, Google searches to help you with adaptive leadership. There's books. I just finished a book called Leadership on the Line, which talks about adaptive leadership. It's a great book. I suggest you read it. If you want the action planning worksheet, feel free. Send me a DM, send me a note. There's my email down in the corner. I will forward it off to you. I have no problem with that. I'll also send you an ebook called Under the Hood. Kind of gives you an idea of how teams work and communicate with one another. Follow Barry and Associates on LinkedIn. Follow myself on LinkedIn. Provide a lot of information out there. If, after all this, you would like to have possibly a group coaching program or maybe a custom program, book a call with me. We can see how we can work things out. When you do that adaptive leadership challenge, use the hashtag adaptive leadership challenge. Right? I want to see that hashtag out and about, and I want to see your challenge. I want to see how you're doing as you get through this. And as I see this, I will find them and I will put a comment. I'll give you a like. I'll give you a comment, a supportive comment. I want everyone to become better at what they do. And this is going to help you get there. So again, thank you again. I'm glad you stayed and listened. If you didn't see the live event and you're watching this on another time, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you left a comment on the live event, I will reply. Trust me, I will. If you follow me on LinkedIn or find me on LinkedIn and send me a message there, I will follow up there as well. But thank you for taking the time. I'm glad you showed up, and